Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Full Court Cleveland. Hey, how come I don't have like, guess who's back? Back again. Rafa's back. Hello, friend. Come on, at least give me a nice welcome. I'm finally back in our beautiful Big Play Studios in Lakefront, Burke
Lakefront.
Airport. I can't, it's too long.
I think you would say
it's kind of like your title. It's like too long.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Is it fair to say always positive, Ryan? And
I'd prefer Ryan.
Yeah. On the other side of the camera, Ryan, our producer, big man Sam Amico, and yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito. Welcome. It's playoff season, Sam. Do you miss me? I kind of heard you guys were talking about me rooting in the media. I wasn't rooting, by the way. I was just excited about.
You were calling the final play, right? Yeah, winning the bracket. That's right. Yeah.
The rule says no rooting in the media section for the teams. I was just rooting for myself. I won over
You're allowed to
$1,000.
root for yourself, yeah. I would think. Yeah, I will tell you this, Ralph. I personally missed you the last couple of weeks, but more importantly than that, my mother asked where you were.
Really?
Yeah. She said, "Where's Ralph?"
She's one of the millions that watches the show.
That's right. Yeah,
right.
And she may be your biggest fan. For me,
Hi,
she
Mom.
could take her leave. She could take her leave. Me, but you, she's all. Where is he? Yeah. So
well, I'm happy to be back here. We have a lot to cover today. Obviously, we still don't know who the Cavs are playing in at the moment we speak here, but still plenty of stuff to talk about. We're gonna break down some of the Cavalier headlines with a new sponsor, Ken Ganley 4. We're going to do our weekly power rank presented by our friends at Garage Beer, and a little longer drive around the association brought to you by Infinity, because there's not really way to look ahead because we know who we're playing and we're going to be talking about that. But first, the topic of the day, the young guys' performance during the Game 82 at Rocket Arena, a double overtime affair. For all of you fans of the NBA and basketball, the last game of the season is usually when the starters rest, unless you got something to play. The Cavs clinched number one and everything they needed to clinch, everything that was possible and out there to clinch. They did it ahead of time, so Donovan Mitchell rested. We're going to talk about his ankle and his rest in a few moments. But also, it is the time when young guys who don't get a chance to start or play and run the plays all the time, Sam, get a whole game. And for those guys, it is not garbage time.
Right.
For those guys, it's filling some eyes. There's coaches watching everywhere. Film gets produced. And, if it's not with the Cavs, it could be somewhere else. Or it's also for next season for the guys that are signed. So what would you take on our young guys with Allen playing only 1 minute, the only Cavalier who
taking a three?
Is there a guy that you love more? There's no reason why not to love my friend, the Fro. I mean, he wanted to play 82 games. He played for 1 minute, sat the rest of the game. We sat starters. We sat Hunter, Wade, Okoro, Jerome, Merrill, almost everybody. But Jalen Tyson had 31 points, and Money Bates came out shooting. Perfect game for Money Bates that he never saw a shot he didn't like to take. Right. And, Naquan Tomlin, 24 points. Craig Porter Jr., 20 points. At the end, I think just the fact that he was like 5 or 6 guys playing kind of caught up to their legs. But what would you take on our young guys on Game 82?
Well, like you said, it's an audition for not just next season, but moving forward for a longer NBA career and proving to be that you can be a regular rotation player. And I think that the Cavs are fortunate in that they have a bunch of guys who are quote-unquote end-of-the-bench guys who look like future rotation players, if not some starters in there. So I think we saw that. We got to see Jalen Tyson play a full game as kind of the first or second option, and he delivered, right? Craig Porter Jr. As a first or second option, which I think a lot of Cavs fans knew already was this guy can play, right? Amani Bates, like I said, never met a shot he didn't like. I saw him play a couple times with the Charge. I'm like, he's hitting shots from the logo. So when he's on fire, forget it. And Naquan Tomlin, I thought, obviously was fantastic as well. So these are all very, very young, raw players, right? And I think it's great for an opportunity for the Cavs to get a chance to see these guys in a live NBA game as opposed to just G League. And Kenny Atkinson said it, ran out of gas just because we didn't have subs. I wasn't using subs. Didn't want to play the vets. So they just ran out of gas.
I mean, it was 13-17 playing almost the whole second half and the 10 minutes in overtime. So you could tell the turnovers by Porter Jr. were caused by just fatigue.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, none of them were complaining after the game because they got to play an NBA game. They're in the score sheet. It's great to see. I was listening to the broadcast with John Michael and Brad Doherty, and Brad was just having a lot of fun watching this guy. Because on the other side, they were not for as long as we had, but on the other side with the Pacers, they had also their 13-17 with the two-way guys and everybody else playing.
Yeah. Well, I think that was it. Is that if you love the NBA, that's still basketball, right? It's still a game, and it's still fun. I guess that was the biggest comeback in Pacers history, but because they were down 27 at one point.
It's the biggest comeback in the NBA this season.
Wow. Well, I thought the Cavs 25-3 overtaking the Celtics was a more impressive comeback.
We're still number one.
Right, yeah.
Well, listen, sit back, relax, keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. We'll take a break and we'll come back with the Cavalier Headlines brought to you by Ken Ganley Auto. Welcome back, everybody, to Full Court Cleveland. Sam Amico, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito, and we want to welcome our new sponsor. Thank you so much for your support, Ken Ganley Ford, and we're going to try something never once attempted on TV or radio or podcast or anything. Not even, I don't think even in typing with chisel and granite has Sam Amico try his 1987 Spanish class and put them into play. Mrs. Valencia, if you're watching, please take a look at your work in action here. Sam, I'll translate you into English after you do your read in Spanish.
Okay. So, Cavs Headlines is brought to you by Ken Ganley Ford. That part's in English. Ken Ganley Ford en Parma y Norton se complace en enunciar precios de empleados para todos.
Así es.
Why is there a space in there? Así es paguas la mismo.
Keep reading.
Okay. Que nuestros empleados pagan por casi. I'm lost there.
Cualquier.
For nuevo dos ubicaciones convenientes en Parma y Norton y una de las mayores selecciones de Ford nuevos de la zona. Consultaciones hoy mismo en KenGanleyFordParma.com.
What Sam tried to say is that Ken Ganley Ford has two convenient locations in Parma and Norton, and right now, pay attention everybody, they are proud to announce employee pricing for everybody, para todos. That's right. You pay what their employees pay for nearly any new Ford. So they offer an extensive inventory of vehicles, friendly team, and a state-of-the-art Ford service center on site. So be sure to check them out at KenGanleyFordParma.com.
You did a better job in English than I did in Spanish. I hope to catch up at some point.
The good thing is you have to. I'm sure you forgot Mrs. Valencia's lessons, but the good thing about Spanish and Portuguese as well, you read it the way it's written. Like the E is E in every word.
Right.
I is E in every word. O is O. U is U. So it's not. There's no funky pronunciation like in French and in English.
Yeah.
Like two O's is an U and all and stuff like that.
Well, I got Parma Norton right.
Yeah. And you got Ken Ganley Ford.
That's right. Yeah.
.com. Well, Cavs Headlines. We make the first one, I think, something that everybody's questioning. I don't think there's a reason to be alarmed. Donovan Mitchell's ankle. It's something that everybody's asking me about. And I'm sure you've written and been asked about the Spider's ankle. He rested. It'll be 2 weeks since he last played when we hit the court on Sunday against either Atlanta or Miami. What's your take? What do you know? What can you tell us about Spider's ankle?
Well, clearly he's been, I don't know, Raf, you were out of town, but he's been warming up before games, been doing his workouts before games, been at practice. Had these been playoff games, he would have been playing. So there's really no issue. I don't even think there's any, after a day or two, there was any kind of soreness or anything. So he's good to go. They were just, at that point of the year, you've already clinched a number 1 seed. Let's be extra cautious.
I think it's a luxury you have.
Yes.
By having the season the Caps have.
Yes.
And I think all the other guys were healthy enough. By the way, anybody that is in an NBA roster right now and active has some kind of aches and pains. And nobody's healthy to the point that you can say,
You're always beat up by the time you get to the playoffs.
The Cavs were talking about like they had a practice for the first time in I don't know how many months later in the season because of the way the schedule has been going. So Donovan Mitchell is fine. I don't want to spend too much time on whether it's the Heat or the Hawks because we still don't know, and I want to be fair to the people that are busy working during these days and won't be able to watch our beautiful show, an informative show until Friday when everybody knows who they're going to be playing. So it could be the Hawks that lost to Orlando. I was surprised about that. Or it could be on Orlando getting a little healthier. They get the prize of facing the Celtics.
Yeah.
Or it could be the Heat, which we all know what they can do once they get into the postseason. They're still not in it because the playing is not considered the postseason. They don't even count as postseason numbers. I don't even know where those numbers go, but it's just they don't count. My question to you, Sam, is about Kenny Atkinson, who the moment he was signed and announced as the Cavaliers head coach, he talked about the sacrifices that some of the guys were going to have to make, and part of that was dictated by the 10-man rotation that, surprisingly to many, Kenny Atkinson stuck with even when people were hurt. So we know what the playoffs are like. We know that even when coaches use the normal 8-man, 7.5-man rotation, those shrink in the playoff. In the playoff, you cannot have the luxury to just rest people. So what's your expectation coming down when the playoffs start? Obviously, the 5 starters we're going to assume is going to be the same starting lineup that brought us to be the best team in the East for the most part. Mitchell, Garland, Strus, and Tower City, Mobley and Allen. Then you put in DeAndre Hunter and Jerome, the Cavalier duo from University of Virginia. Yeah. And after that, that's where I think the question is, and I'll pass it on to you. What do you see happening? Is it dictated by matchups? Is it dictated by who's hot, or what Kenny Atkinson needs coming off the bench?
I think, and I was just thinking that there's your right top 7. You were assuming with Hunter and Jerome.
I think it's the automatic 7.
Right. That's your top 7, and then beyond that, you think about Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, Sam Merrill. Those are probably your main 3 guys, and frankly, I think that they're all going to play. It's just how much, how long. One of the Cavs' great advantages in the postseason is going to be their depth. Is it tough to play 10 guys? Yes. Will some guys play less minutes? Yes. I suspect those last 3 that I just mentioned are probably going to have, in Merrill, Wade, and Okoro, probably going to have games where they don't play as much. One of them won't, but then the next game they may be used a lot. So, that's just part of being a professional and getting used to the idea of maybe my minutes aren't as consistent in the playoffs as they were in the regular season, but when I go in, I got to make an impact right away. And they're all of those guys are so key. I don't think Kenny Atkins is going to veer too much because, hey, 64-18, you don't want to mess with success too much.
But I don't see him keeping Donovan on the bench.
Right. Yeah, that's
longer than
those guys are going to ramp up their minutes
because you can't give yourself the luxury of that you had in the regular season. So I see changing. I do think that in the postseason it's dictated by matchup. And I remember the championship series, the championship year where Channing Frye knew that against this team he wasn't going to play, but against Atlanta he was going to play because they. So I think that's the luxury that Kenny Atkinson has, and that's the other thing. Each team has 15 guys in the roster, 13 active, but Kenny knows that he can trust at least 10 to come in at any time. So I think it's going to be dictated by whether I can see DeAndre Hunter, for example, playing a lot longer against Atlanta and the Celtics because of their length. Without knowing who's going to be the second round if the Cavs advance. If you need shots, if you need points, in the postseason, scoring comes down a little bit. Merrill, if he finds his groove, he hasn't been a liability defensively, so I think that's something that he can trust. And I think that's the biggest part, that Kenny Atkinson can look down the bench and not only have 5 guys that he can use, but 5 guys that he can trust, that can come in at any time, at any point of the postseason.
Yeah, well, and guys who do the intangibles, right? And that's, you never know when Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter, Isaac Okoro, Sam Merrill, or Dean Wade, you never know when one of those guys is going to get hot, right? Maybe Max Strus is really hot one game, and that you're right in that sense, Raf, that, well, that's going to cut into somebody's bench minutes because you need Strus out there extending the opposing defense. You always have to worry about foul trouble too.
Yeah.
And
that brings in Tristan Thompson into the conversation.
That could bring Tristan Thompson in there, and that's going to be. You're talking about a guy who's won a championship and does all the intangibles, and that's such a huge key, because it's so often in the playoffs, your stars are going to do what they're going to do. They do it all year. They do it in the playoffs. What are the role players doing? Yeah. And that's usually what are the role players doing on the road if you're able to win the series.
And when you look at the thing, we so much is talked about how the Cavs have been together for so long, but all of these guys have gone through the ups and the serious downs of being eliminated, losing in the play-in, losing in the first round, losing in the second round, and now is the time where that experience comes into play. Tristan Thompson, everybody talks about the shot, the block, the stop. Tristan Thompson had a monster Game 7. J.R. Smith had those 8 points that erased the Warriors leading Game 7, and not many people talked about because, obviously everybody remembers the ending.
That third quarter was huge from J.R. Smith.
And Tristan Thompson was monstrous in the boards as well. So I think everybody had to play a role. And the good thing about how Kenny Atkinson has built this team to 60-plus wins is that everybody executed their role almost to perfection.
Yeah. And that's what it takes, right? You need guys to execute their role. Not just, it doesn't have to be perfect, but they have to execute it within the team concept to perfection. Whether that you don't have to make every shot, but you got to do the little things. You got to defend. You got to go after rebounds. You got to play with a winning mindset. And we know all these things from seeing past teams. Yeah. Keep the ball moving. Keep believing even when you're down. And I think that's the great thing about this Cavs team going to the playoffs. They're incredibly resilient.
Hey, next week we promise you we'll have a little more in-depth look about round 1 for the Cavs when we know exactly on Friday who the Cavs are going to play. But first we want to thank you. We want to thank our friends from Ken Ganley 4. Check them out at one of their stores in Parma or in Norton, or visit their website at kenganley4parma.com. And we promise Mrs. Valencia and Ken Ganley 4 in Parma and Norton that Sam's Spanish is going to get better episode after episode of Full Court Cleveland. We'll be right back.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Pure AV, luxury home automation. Experience your dream smart home.
Welcome back, everybody, to Full Court Cleveland. Here we are in beautiful, sunny Cleveland. It is waiting for Sunday at 7 p.m. That we know. Yeah. 7 p.m. at Rocket Arena. The Cavaliers will be facing somebody. And the most important thing is, can I break some news here?
Please.
As part of our power ranking is that we're going to have a big surprise for everybody, for the almost 20,000 people that will be at Rocket Arena on Sunday and during the playoffs. So you want to be paying attention. Especially in the second half.
I'm going to try to pay attention.
Power ranking. There you go. They're brought to you by our good friends at Garage Beer. Garage Beer comes in just 2 flavors: classic light lager and lime. No frills, no bitterness. They should say no frills, just thrills, and no bitterness. No IPAs. It's just beer, flavor beer. Find your local retailers who sell Garage Beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com. And here, for the first time, Sam, I don't know how much liberty you have to go above the 3, because the power ranking brought to you by Garage Beer are the 3 favorites to win the finals. So,
yeah,
I know almost the whole league makes the finals, but 3 favorites. Vegas odds. If you're, I don't know if you're
I'm not a gambler.
Person who likes to gamble his money. I don't. OKC plus 175. I don't do so much. I don't even know what plus 175 means. I used
don't
to
either.
I used to know that
Ryan, do you
2
know?
2 to 1. What does 175 mean?
Yeah, so
Ryan?
that's very good. So if it's so anything that's minus odds, you make less money than you put in. But
So you're
anything
the
that's
dog
plus,
if you're minus.
because OKC is the heavy favorite to win the championship, even though they're plus 175. So even if you bet $100 on OKC to win at plus 175 odds, you'd get $175 back.
Okay. So Oklahoma City gives you $75 if you bet 100. 175.
I'm glad
Boston
you understood
is
that.
190.
It was Spanish to me.
Yeah. Boston is 190. Cleveland 490. That means
Okay.
that Boston and Oklahoma have better odds of winning the championship.
Right. I
according
get
to
that
Las
now.
Vegas.
Okay.
The Lakers are 1,500. Golden State 1,900. The Knicks at 3,100. That's if you really have money to waste. Clippers 3,200 and Denver 3,900. Who are your three favorites to win the title this year?
Oklahoma City, Boston, and Cleveland.
You're gonna go with your Vegas guys?
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, it's hard to tell. To me, the Western Conference, and this is unfair to the Thunder, even though they had a remarkable regular season. It's pretty much wide open. I don't see Oklahoma. You know what's so funny is the top 3 seeds I don't see getting to the finals. I don't see Oklahoma City. But maybe.
But yet.
But not Houston and not the Lakers.
But yet, out of the top 3, 2 are Eastern Conference favorites, which would tell you it's a little tighter in the East.
Yeah.
Because there's 2 of the 3 top favorites in Vegas. It's Boston and the Cavs. But I agree with you. I think everything's going to be determined by matchup in the Western Conference. Oklahoma City doesn't have the experience that we have. So that's something also that nobody, I think, when was the last time some team made it for the first time and just,
yeah, right.
took it all the way to the finals?
You look at Houston as a relatively new program in terms of their success, and they're number 2 seed, and they're playing the 7th seeded Warriors in the first round. I think the Rockets are a better team, but it's playoffs, and this could be a different animal for a team like Houston playing Golden State in the first round.
Since we have, 2 flavors, 2 types of beers, Classic Light and Lime. I'm going to give you Classic Light Lager was the ranking. The Lime is this question for you. How fair is it to you, and I'm not criticizing anybody here, but the number 1 seed gets the prize, yes, to play at home, but to have a little bit more than 24 hours to prepare for the first opponent?
Yeah, that is...
Am I the only one looking at that, saying, wait a minute? The Celtics have already started working on their opponent. They're number 2.
Right.
3, 4, 5, and 6 already know since last Sunday.
Yeah. No, that's and the Thunder and the Cavs, the number 1 seed,
they were not
have
till
one
Sunday.
day to prepare.
1 day.
Whereas every other team in the playoffs, like said Ralph, with the exception of number 2 seed, but like the Pacers and Knicks, they get all week to prepare for each other. And I'm sorry, and Pistons and Knicks and Pacers and Bucks, in the Eastern Conference. So I think that there's a lot, I thought that too. I'm like, why does the number 1 seed get 1 day to prepare for a specific opponent? And that's something the league's got to figure out, whether they end the regular season a few days earlier and have that play-in tournament on the weekend so that you get a full week off if you're the number 1 seed. I don't know. It's for all the great ideas that Adam Silver thinks he has, there are many flaws to the process.
And I'm telling you, the play-in tournament, when it came out, I looked at it as the way I looked at the wild card when baseball started doing it. Everybody hated it because we're all such purists in this world. And oh my God, you change. I love the
I don't mind the play-in tournament.
The play-in, the wild card and all that.
Yeah.
I just don't see how we can fix that. And I don't care if we have played Atlanta 3 times or Miami 3 times. It's still only 1 day to prepare. Yes, the other team gets also 1 day, but hey, we earned something.
Yeah, Atlanta's a different team too than when the Cavs faced them before, because LeVert and Niang are there as opposed to and DeAndre Hunter's in Cleveland. So those are 2 totally different teams than the teams that played all 3 of their games before the All-Star break. So. Yeah, to your point, Ralph, it's a little bit of a flawed system there, where the number 1 seeds in the conference have 1 day to prepare for their playoff.
Well, that's it for our first segment of Power Ranking with Drink Garage Beer. Remember, drink garage beer responsibly. We'll be right back with a drive around the association on Full Court Cleveland. Welcome back, everybody. Rafa, Sam, and Ryan from the Big Play Studios. This is Full Court Cleveland, and we are going to take a drive around the association that is proudly sponsored by Infinity. Safety and Sam have never looked this good. With a suite of standard intelligent safety features, the all-new QX80 is as safe as it is luxurious. The Infinity QX80 is great for the whole family as it offers 3 spacious rows and is an IIHS top safety pick. So go check out everything Infinity has to offer right now. And we do that. While you do that, we'll take a drive around with our Infinity QX80 around the NBA top stories. And the first one, let's start with the matchups on the side of the East Coast. Celtics number 2 versus Magic number 7. Celtics took the season series 2-1. And since the All-Star break, Celtics 22-5, Orlando 14-12, even though all those losses and everything were caused more than anything else by injuries than anything else, than bad playing.
Yeah, Orlando now has some playoff experience from having played the Cavs last year. They're very good at defending the three-point line. That's the one thing that Orlando's a really good defensive team. They have size, very good size. We've seen all this. Paolo Banchero,
coached so well.
Franz Wagner, coached so well. Wendell Carter Jr. You're going to miss Suggs, but we saw in the playing tournament the other day, the Magic are a pretty deep team too.
They also have, what's his name, that long kid, Anthony Black. No,
Anthony Black. They've got Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah.
Cole Anthony had
Jonathan
a huge
Isaac,
game. Yeah, so they've got a lot of size and length, and they do such, this is going to be an intriguing matchup from the sense that Orlando's big, they're physical, they play incredibly confidently, and they defend the three-point line extremely well, and that's Boston. That's what Boston does. They shoot three-pointers. So it's really going to be a battle of wills here. Boston's better at what they do than what Orlando, than Orlando is at what they do, but I think it could be an interesting first-round series.
And we'll get to see how, they're going to miss Mo Wagner, which is their spirit animal.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of drove that series against the Cavs to 7 games, the way he came in and just kind of shook everything up. But also we're going to see, I know we talked earlier about the rotations and how they shrink. The Celtics have nothing to shrink it from. They have 8 guys that they're going to play, which is the 5 starters, who are probably the best starting 5 because of the experience, because of the ring they have in the finger, with Porzingis if he's healthy, with Tatum and Brown, and with Holiday and White, who seems to shoot 100% when he plays against the Cavs.
And 20% against everybody else.
And then coming off the bench, they'll have the 2 kids, maybe 8.5, but it's Hauser and Pritchard. Hauser cannot. Everybody talks about Garland having problems with Brown and Tatum. Nobody talks about Mitchell just lighting up and tying Hauser's ankle every time he drives to the basket. And then they have Horford and Luke Cornett that against the Cavs he plays like Bill Walton, and everybody else he plays like Luke Cornett.
Yeah,
right. So I can't wait to see how that is tested from the Celtics that had some issues also with ankles and injuries with Brown and Tatum towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's, how are they going to, because Brown and Tatum are going to have to defend bigger players in that series, right? I mean, you're talking about Franz Wagner or
that can drive the ball.
Drive the ball. Contavious Caldwell-Pope. You talk about Derek White and Drew Holiday, who they're streaky. Yeah. And Contavious Caldwell-Pope does not give you that opportunity to get, if you're not making shots right away against him, you're done for the game. I mean, that's how good of a defender he is. So in that sense, I think, again, it could be a very interesting series. And you're right. Both of these teams played their best basketball of the year often against the Cavaliers. Yeah. And I saw that against the Sacramento Kings the other night. I was just like, the Sacramento Kings played out of their minds games against the Cavs, and then they played the Dallas Mavericks in the play-in elimination game, and they look like the Sacramento Kings again.
Except for DeRozan. They look like the Sacramento Bulls with DeRozan and Levine leading them in scoring. One series that I'm very intrigued to watch is Pistons-Knicks, because the Knicks, we all have talked about in length about how they talking about rotation with Kenny Atkinson, about the lack of with Tibbs, but also JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons have given them a hard time in even at Madison Square Garden. They played the Knicks very well. It's a series. I know I don't want to say it's a toss up, but I wouldn't be too surprised if this series goes all the way.
Yeah, it seems to me that the Pistons aren't your typical younger team coming in, because they do have veterans like Beasley and Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris. So these guys have been around the playoff block before. And the Knicks, have not been good against some of the obviously 0-10 against the Cavs, Thunder, and Celtics, and have not been at their best against the league's elite. So, is this an opportunity for the Pistons to come in? Great defensive team, very good defensive team, the Pistons. I like the way they're playing. If I had to pick one upset through the whole playoffs, this would be it, because I know Detroit, last year 14 wins. So that's hard to, some people say that's hard to pick them, but just the way they play and the way they defend, they've kind of been playing playoff style basketball all season.
And playoff is all about matchups. The Pistons 3-1 against the Knicks this season. They both play almost 500 after the All-Star break. So you mentioned if you saw an upset, I think this one is also upset possibility. Yeah. And I don't know which one would be the upset between the Pacers hosting the Bucks 4-5. Obviously the Bucks are going to be without Damian Lillard, and they've been a mess for like a couple of years probably already. 3-1, the record in favor of the Bucks over the Pacers, but there's also a little history there that dates back all the way to the in-season tournament last year when they were like, I don't want to say punches thrown, but spirits and energy went up a little bit against these two teams, these two teams.
Yeah, it was chippy. And wasn't that one of the games where Giannis demanded the ball?
The ball, that started everything.
The Pacers, So there's a little bit of a Midwestern rivalry there, that we've seen. That series could go either way. I think Indiana's the favorite after advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and Milwaukee doesn't have Lillard. But, we're going to see what that Kyle Kuzma trade meant to the Bucks in February. See if that's enough to lift them to a second round series. And of course, the winner of that series, assuming the Cavaliers get out of the first round, that's who the Cavs will face, either the Pacers or Bucks.
And the Cavs have two big 1-point games wins against the Bucks this season. So we are gonna take a break. The good news for Sam is that we've been asking for our friends from Infinity to send us a QX80. We still don't have it parked outside, but now we get it long enough to do 2 segments on the Infinity Drive around the association. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Full Court Cleveland. We're in the middle of our drive around the association, brought to you by our friends at Infinity. Now I get to sit shotgun, and Sam is going to drive the QX80 because we're going West Coast.
Yeah.
Houston Warriors. The Warriors have a 3-2 because they have to play an extra game because of the in-season tournament. 3-2 over the Rockets. Since the All-Star break, Houston 18-9, and the Warriors, with the arrival of Butler III, 20-7. What you take on that series is a big matchup between not only the players but attitude from coaching, sliding all the way down to the court with the players. What do you see with this series going?
That could be an intense back and forth. I said earlier that you think that Golden State might have the edge in terms of experience, playoff know-how, but at the same time, Houston's very physical. They get in your head. They might be able to, they're a youthful team. So I just think that that's going to be a real series to watch, in the sense that it could get physical, it could get chippy. That's the way Houston likes to play. And I think they're going to try and get in Steph's head. That any team with Dillon Brooks, is going to do that. And they have a great defender in Thompson. That's a tough one to pick. It could go either way. I think I think all these series are going to be good, but outside the Cavs, to watchability, I think that Houston Golden State series.
And we'll see if the Warriors benefited from dropping down to the 7th spot and having to win a game to make it to face the Rockets instead of facing the Lakers, who now get Minnesota, who's a team that was just in the conference finals recently till last season, no? When they lost to the
They lost the Mavericks last year,
So now they get to play a LeBron, Doncic-led Lakers, which seem to be getting their footing with the role players that you mentioned earlier. 2-2 the series in the regular season. The Lakers 18-12 after the All-Star break, 19-8 for Minnesota, and a rematch between Luka and Ant.
Yeah,
happening last year,
right, in the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I think that that's another toss-up series, but because you think about how Minnesota, obviously different team last year with Karl Anthony Towns, and now they have Julius Randle and DiVincenzo, but they still have Edwards, they still have Gobert. And last year against the Suns, everybody was like, oh, the Suns swept the series from the Timberwolves going into the playoffs, and they're the veteran team and blah, blah, blah. And the Timberwolves didn't care about any of that. And I think, playoffs are where superstars are born, right? And Anthony Edwards last year beat the Phoenix Suns and then, got to the Western Conference Finals. They beat the Nuggets in Denver in Game 7. And I think that experience is invaluable. How are the rest of the Lakers going to play is my question. You know what you're getting from LeBron. You know what you're getting from Luka Doncic. Is Austin Reeves going to be Jerry West like he was the second half of the season in the playoffs? Is Rao Hachimura, is he going to take his game to another level? Dorian Finney-Smith, all these guys, how your role players play in the postseason. And if they don't perform, the Lakers are going to get bounced pretty quickly because LeBron and Luka aren't enough.
I like when LeBron lets Luka take care of the game and then he just closes.
Yes.
I think that's the formula for them to win.
Yeah.
When Luka just does his 30-point, 20
and
points in the first quarter,
himself.
And LeBron just plays the feeder, and then at the end of the game, he takes over and closes the game. But easier said than done. I think that's the thing for them. We're not going to talk much about Grizzlies, about the Thunder, because we
don't know yet.
We don't know yet at this point if it's going to be the
Thunder
Grizzlies
in 4
or the Mavs.
I'll just say that. Thunder in 4.
Yeah, either way. Either way, I think it's a matchup that the Thunder will take care of
pretty quickly.
Quickly, and then they're going to get into the big matchups and the big questions that we have. Are you still voting, or are you still putting your money on a Lakers-Cavs final? That you will, at least you would like that better than Thunder-Cavs or whatever comes out of the
It would
West.
be better for the Cavs, and whoever comes out of the West would be great for hoopswire.com. Cavs-Lakers would be huge. I don't know that that's who I'd put. Obviously not a gambling man, but I wouldn't put money on that series. I don't have that much faith in the Lakers. Like I said, if something goes wrong where Luka and LeBron are doing it all and nobody else is stepping up, I think there could be a lot of games like that for the Lakers. So, Roth, if I'm being put on the spot, I will go with the Cavs and Houston Rockets in the finals.
Wow. And I think, just to expand a little bit on what you were saying about Luka and LeBron, a one-game visit to any town, yes, they can get away with Luka and LeBron scoring everything. A 7-game series,
right?
When the opponent is going to concentrate on taking something away, and you don't have anything else to reply to.
Yeah,
I think that's when the Lakers might get in trouble with just Luka and LeBron. But for the purpose of conversation and what will be going on in this city and in LA as well, I believe, a Lakers-Cavs thing. I mean, I'm sure the TV will.
The ratings would be through the roof. Yeah. Anytime you hear about ratings issues in the NBA, which we get bombarded with that, I think that this would surpass maybe Cavs Warriors finals in ratings, and people would be talking. The NBA would be sending out those press releases every day that I get. Ratings highest ever for this. They would. It'd be through the roof.
You know what? It'll be the best way for all the fans that want LeBron to come and retire. How about we help him retire and we just win the title and just send him home?
Cavs retired Larry Bird.
It's a win-win situation for him.
Yeah, right. Cavs retired, sent Larry Bird into retirement. So
thanks again for driving safely, and thanks again to our friends at Infinity. If you're in the market for a safe, sleek, sophisticated new vehicle, be sure to check out the all-new QX80 when you can in your nearest Infinity dealer. We'll be right back.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and same hometown level of service.
Welcome back, everybody. Down the stretch they come on Full Court Cleveland. Ryan, Sam, and yours truly, Rafa. And the potential topics for off the court, which they allow me on one segment to get off track. Are you a golf fan? I never asked you if you're a golf.
I am not a golf fan.
Are you a golf player or a fan?
Neither.
Okay, so producer masters do not include golf anymore against NFL. Are you an NFL fan?
Huge. Yeah.
NFL draft.
Yeah. Oh, I think
Are you one of those that do like mock draft and stuff like
NFL? I do NBA mock drafts for the website.
Yeah, I know that.
I will check an NFL. I check NFL mock drafts from time to time. Yeah, not a ton, but I'll check just to see who they have the Browns taking and who they have the Steelers taking, because I don't like the Steelers, so I want to see who the enemy might take. But yeah. I mean, I am not one of those guys who's sitting around, at the draft parties. My buddies have, hey, want to come over and watch the NFL draft? I'm like, no, I'll find out who they pick tomorrow. I don't need to know right now. I don't know. I'll never understand that. And I'm in the minority, I know. Yeah. But I just am like.
I guess because I worked it. I never worked it. But let's go back to college basketball and the whole thing about rooting. I know you and Nick discussed this earlier, but was the girl, do you see the video? The girl wasn't even rooting. I mean, she was videotaping herself for her own reaction.
I did not think that was obnoxious at all.
And what makes me laugh is that people on social media, they were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe there's no rooting in it." It's like,
get over it.
Such thing. There's no, obviously you can't be drinking and you can't be rooting in it. Well, she wasn't rooting. She was sitting next to me. And then the second day, I asked her to please sit in front because I was being distracted. I wasn't really watching the court. I was kind of looking sideways. So I said, "Can you please sit in front of me so I don't get distracted?" So, but no, I don't think she was. And the other thing that people used to tell me when I had a talk show, that it wasn't right for me to root for a team or to say that I was a fan of a team. I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody that works on this side,
you're
do it because they're a fan or something, because they love sports. So why would you want me to lie to you and say, no, I don't root for anybody?
Well, I think that the people who are fans want the people who are covering the team to be fans. Yeah. As opposed to, like my good buddy Joe Cali, and he wouldn't be ashamed, or he wouldn't be mad at me for saying this. He is from Cleveland. He covers the Bulls. He does not like the Bulls at all.
That's fine.
And I'm just like, you should at least have some allegiance, I think, if you're going to cover the team for a long time. He's done it for 25 years. Wow. Whereas, to me, I'm an unabashed Cavs fan. It doesn't show up in my work, but that's who I grew up rooting for. This is the team I wanted to cover growing up. And
I agree with you. I grew up being a Yankee fan and a Celtics fan.
Yeah.
And everybody asking me about my loyalty to that. I said, wait a minute. The Cavs and the Guardians pay me.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I have loyalty to them?
Right, yeah.
The Yankees and the Celtics cost me money all my life.
Yeah, right.
Why wouldn't I root for the team that actually, like the Cavs, signed me to a 2-week contract every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I root for them?
Well,
why wouldn't I have loyalty for that team? I don't have a problem beating the Yankees or the Celtics. I want to beat the Yankees and the Celtics when I play when I'm doing the game.
Yeah, right.
But I'm not gonna lie and say no. I never liked the Yankees, or I never liked.
Sure. Yeah, for me, it's always been, obviously, growing up in the area. I moved away, and had to cover teams. I covered the Steelers for a little bit, and I covered them when I was always happy when they lost, but I covered them fairly, and didn't make that clear in my writing. I didn't tell too many people. Some people I did.
Well, listen, I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to be in the playoff, and hopefully, by the time we get here next week, we're going to be talking about how the Cavs are looking to just get the brooms out and sweep. But if not, we're going to be hoping that we make it deep into this playoff run, because I think we have a fun group of guys led by a really cool dude and a great fan base. So, hey, don't forget to be at Rocket Arena to see the surprise we have for you.
I can't wait. Second half of game one?
I would say so, yes. Okay. Second half. So, anyway, Tune us in on Twitter, on Big Play. Get the app, put it on your phone, and you can catch us even when you're working out. Ryan, Sam, Rafa, adios.